Hello, I will be presenting today my topic, which is the N is nigh lexical replacement of transitive adjectives in the Middle English period. So let's start with an outline of what I will be talking about today. So I will be briefly explaining what the category of transitive adjectives are. Then I will explain which semantic group I'm focusing on, mentioning some factors conditioning their survival or loss, and I will provide you with an outline and some case studies. So let's start with a definition or with a quote from Les, which very much summarizes what's happening with in the Middle English period with a lot of adjectives, a lot of words, and transitive adjectives are no exception. So he says a language is population of variants moving through time and subject to selection. And as you will see, transitive adjectives are no exception to this. What I understand by transitive adjective, I'm actually using Manning's definition, who says that adjectives which transitive adjectives are adjectives which take case mark NP complements, that is, they take direct complements without needing a preposition. They were very much frequent in Old English, but become extinct in the course of Middle English, except for a couple of relics. And here's an example where him, was, Engel, ne. In present day English would be Angel was near him or near to him. So near can still take prepositional or a direct complement. So let's have a look at my data and methodology. So I've decided to use approximately and distant group for this study. And I've extracted or used the following adjectives. I've decided to exclude nag angle and a word from this data. The reason was that nag angle doesn't necessarily fit within my semantic group, meaning more present, and word also. These adjectives suggest the word mean more, are used more in the sense of movement rather than position. I've used historical thesaurus to extract their synonyms, and then I've extracted the data from corpus of Middle English prose and verse, and I've supplemented the data with the data from Dictionary of Old English and Middle English Dictionary. Approximately and distance adjectives are extremely frequent or well distributed for a couple of reasons, and one of them is that the sense of proximity and distance is not only the physical space, but also in the sense of time, meaning future, near or far future, or relationship, meaning close or distant relationship with somebody. So meaning that any manuscript talking about relationship with God, or talking about a scientific topic would most likely contain one of these adjectives. So here is the list of adjectives that I actually looked at. On the left side, you see transitive adjectives according to Mitchell, and on the right side, you see synonymous adjectives extracted from historical thesaurus. Unfast is a bit specific as it's not added as an adjective, but still fits semantically with the group. So now I'm going to mention a couple of factors that or I consider to be the reason for the loss of or survival of the given adjective. There is no single factor, so all factors in combination cause that the given adjective is lost or survives. One of them is homonymy, causing potential confusion within the text. And anhende is a good example of this as it refers to the proximately, but also the word for one-handed looks very similar, causing potential confusion, and adjective is actually lost before Middle English. Another factor could be semantic change, and an example is hände, which becomes the change. Semantic change is from proximately to the meaning of courteous, as can be seen in example, anhände night, which is a very common combination or collocation, very frequent in Middle English, unlike the proximity sense, which becomes very much restricted. The sense can also become too restricted, and as a result, the distribution is restricted. And one of such examples is yetenge, which originally meant close to, but then, as you can see in the example, the complement was positioned before the adjective rofe yetenge, and it was reanalyzed as a have as kind of a compound adjective. Another factor could be frequency, and that's a common factor and a good predictor according to Timofeeva whether the given adjective survives or doesn't survive. And just a couple of examples from the sample of adjectives that had very low frequency in Old or Middle English, and with frequency goes in hand distribution, which also could cause that if the given adjective is very much restricted in the use, it's not that widely used and most likely will not survive, such as on fast, which is only attested in 2 texts, so most likely it was not very well distributed. The fifth factor would be function. The more functions the given adjective has, the more likely it would be it survives. And this also could be an example, for example, attributive function, where adjective is not found in one or the other, so in attributive or predicative function only. Also, another counterfactor could be, and this is the example of fer and ne, that if there are widely distributed, well-established all-purpose words, the other adjectives or the other words might have a lower chance to survive when competing against these well-established words. Now let's have a look at the timeline, which summarizes all of the adjectives, that is Mitchell's list, and the list of their synonyms. As you can see, there are each of the adjective has their own root and own timeline, and at the bottom of the timeline you see ne and fair, which are very well established and continue to used till present day English. Then in the middle, in Middle English, as you can see, a lot of adjectives are first attested, some only for very brief period. Some survive into the present day English, such as adjacent, distant, or remote. Some are only used very briefly, such as on fast or lointain. If I divide the timeline into 3 periods, the first one would be Old English, where adjectives are pretty much established and there is no variation. Then in Middle English, there is a lot of variation, a lot of lexical innovation and replacement, and a lot of pressure from incoming lexis. And then once Middle English is passed, the situation becomes much more stable and well-established adjectives, most of them survive into present-day English. So let's move on to the case studies. So as I mentioned, one of the adjectives was hände, and hände, in addition to the regular distribution, was also often found in a coordinate with fer, so fer and hände, which was competing against a well-established coordinate for fer and ne. As I mentioned, proximity sense of hand was very much in decline in Middle English, and the courteous or beautiful sense was becoming more dominant, and hände was holding ground or resisting the decline, the kind of was holding up only or most frequently in the coordinates, such as fer and hände, but this was still competing against very well established far and near. And as you can see in the table at the top of the slide, far and near was still very much more frequent, and far and hände was only accounting for about 6.5% 0.3% of examples. To give you an kind of insight on what kind of text Fahrenheit was found in, on the left side you see all combinations or all kind of spelling variants or all possible coordinates that Fahrenheit was found in. On the right side you see far and near combinations. As you can see, only 6 texts from the whole sample contained Fahrenheit, and in all of the texts, if Fahrenheit was there, Fahrenheit was also listed. I'm not including texts that contain far and near, which was very much well-established term and very frequent. I've only included the text that also contained Fahrenheit. And as you can see, the position far is always positioned initially in both hände and near coordinate. Moving on to one of the texts that I've listed, as you can see, in addition to the kind of distance and approximately coordinates, there was also a coordinate with the synonyms such as hände and free, courteous and hände, etc. And hände was actually more frequently occurring within the coordinate on the left side, the nobility one, rather than the distance one. And as I mentioned, in the sense of courteous, it's also attested attributively, such as and hände night. In the sense of approximately, it's restricted purely to the coordinates. And one of the reasons why the author was kind of using both, kind of oscillating between far and hände, far and near, could be also rhyme, as you can see in examples below. Another adjective that is worth mentioning is närhållande, which is attested in Middle English. Its etymology is it's composed of adverb and a noun, and it's spelled together with a dash or separately. It's one of those adjectives, and transitive adjectives are often grammaticalized into preposition, especially the proximate and distance ones, such as an example would be, for example, near, which was also becomes a preposition. So nahende is also an example of grammaticalization into preposition. As you can see, it originally as an adjective, it takes prepositional complements. It can also occur as an adverb, but also very commonly it is found as a preposition. Here is an overview of all of the texts and what kind of proximity and distance adjectives occur in these texts. I have not included frequency, as for the purpose of this paper is not that important. As I mentioned, I'm using Allen's classification of texts into texts with substantial inflection, only dative and accusative distinction, and case impoverished texts. And I've also included some other Middle English texts to ensure that some texts containing more modern adjectives, that is adjectives such as distant, which was only later attested, are also included. And as you can see in the kind of upper half of the text, jehende is still attested, and only later on it starts to be restricted to the sense of courteous, which are marked red. Ne group, so that is ne, near, and next, are very established, and as well as fair and fairen. And as for the other adjectives or prepositions, such as onfast is restricted only to ormulum and Lehmannsbrut. And as for the story of England, as you can see, the author uses a great variety of adjectives, that is distant and proximity adjectives, as well as Chaucerian treatise on the astrolabe. And the texts in the belonging to the A and B group, also possibly to the C group, are more restricted to the well-established adjectives such as ne and fair. Lastly, as I mentioned, transitive adjectives take prepositional and direct complements. Ferne and hende are one of the typical examples of these adjectives. Nehende is attested first in Middle English and starts taking prepositional complements, as you can see in the example. Drie also takes prepositional complements, and distant, remote, adjacent also take prepositional complements, but still all these newly attested adjectives such as distant, remote, and adjacent are more restricted in the sense that they are used in more formal register, unlike per and ne. So to conclude my topic, as you could see, foreign are very much well established lexis already in Middle English, and in the course of Middle English, where there was the English language was undergoing a lot of lexical replacement and innovation, they held their ground due to a number of reasons I mentioned, such as distribution and their frequency, and only terms that lexis that survives are a couple of more formal adjectives such as distant and remote, which continue to be a bit restricted, but still well established till the present day English. And here are my references, and thank you for listening.